Here we go. Settle and camera. And action.
The Honourable Woman is a thrilling thriller that's about something very important as well, something that's current and a real situation.
Every move, every decision has its consequences.
And then underneath that was this ocean of real human life.
So it's entertainment, but it's important too.
Well, Hugo got in touch with us at Drama Republic at the end of last year and asked if we were interested in doing The Honourable Woman, which was already greenlit, and from our point of view, it's fantastic to have that opportunity.
I'd previously done a thriller. Prior to that, I'd come from, I suppose, kind of doing some social comedies, what does that mean? But sort of dramas with funny lines and quite kind of looking into the psyche of people's characters. Then I did this thriller, and on its completion, I was really keen to marry the two experiences. One by the psychological, real sort of investigation, particularly of a woman's psyche, and then the other to put that into this thriller format, which has got a kind of robust armature. And so that was the pursuit, to place a woman into a thriller genre.
My involvement started back in end of 2012, actually. I got a phone call from Greg Brenman, the exec producer, saying, Abby, I want you to have a read of this script that I've got hold of. And I was right in the middle of another project at the time, and when I'm on a project, I just totally like to focus on that. But one night, I sat there reading it, thinking, wow, this is amazing. And this was only just episode 1.
When I first read the script, I sent the script and they sent me all the episodes and said, and I read it and I thought, okay, I think I'm a relatively intelligent person and I had no idea what was going on. So I read it again, by which time I thought, okay, now I have a vague idea of what's going on. And then I read it again, by which time I'd kind of got it.
It's a page turner, and that's a given. I don't want to sound cliche because everyone says about that every script, don't they? But I remember reading it right from the word go. Just kind of like my jaw seemed to be just on the floor.
It's rare to read that kind of script, political thriller, and it makes you also discover that politics is a kind of strange and fascinating world. It's like another planet with its own code, and the script was like a huge chess play.
It's really thrilling to read a script where there are so many brilliantly written female parts, and Rachel Stein is sort of in a way, the maternal kind of archetype, the mother. I feel like it's been written very generously.
Hugo will always make it a bit more complex, and he'll always find ways to keep it interesting, and he will always incorporate any ideas you have yourself. But I used to turn the pages of the script and think, my God, what Maggie Gyllenhaal has to do today.
I read the scripts and they were incredible. I mean, I never read anything like them before. On one hand, they had the thriller aspect, which was, Hugo was so good at that. I mean, so expertly, perfectly put together, the twists and turns and the secrets. And then underneath that was this, ocean of real human life.
Hugo has a wonderful way to tell a story, telling the story through the people, through their feelings, through very simple lines and things that happened. It's all simple and brilliant.
There's a single pulse of electricity that goes through a story, and you just hope that each individual that comes to contribute to that. But that's true of the crew as much as it is of the actors. So your Gribbs, your Spark, everybody are contributing to carrying this single pulse of electricity through the story. And if it dissipates, that's when it goes wrong.
Well, the production process has been really sort of a superhuman challenge, mostly for Hugo, but also for us. it's a bit like sort of walking down a road balancing 7 teacups on your head. It's a very, very complicated thing to do.
It's really fast. I quite like shooting really fast, but it is fast. We can get up to about 30 odd setups a day, sometimes a bit more. Now, an average drama and maybe a movie will be doing 17 tops, so I like going fast. So it's always challenging. It was a big canvas, this story, and we had to go to many places, get in and get out very fast.
Shooting episode 7, episode 1, episode 4 all on the same day, often, I just couldn't keep track of that kind of neat rhythm. So it got really wild and really messy in a way that I loved.
And Morocco was not least amongst these. And the strangest experience in Morocco, which is just a sort of personal directorial experience, is the desert. The desert's an amazing space because it's so huge. And when the camera is placed best to witness the psychology of a character, how dull. But that's what makes it easy. You kind of go, well, the camera sort of goes there because and walls, rooms, streets, they all demand and dictate really where that camera is going to go amongst the actors because of, it's going to be best to witness it in this corner here. The desert gives you none of that. It's just flat.
When Hugo and I were interviewing a lot of the heads of department, whether it was cameraman, designer, he would always have this sort of interesting analogy, and I was never quite sure what it meant and how it was going to work out, but he would always sort of talk about there's one nail in a desert, and we will all surround that nail, and we will all have our own hammers.
And you all have to, if it's going to work, you'll have to strike it at the same time. And I'll say go. You all strike it, but you have to do it for yourself.
And we will all bring our own contribution to this, but we will all hit this nail at exactly the same time together. And I wasn't quite sure whether that was just a load of old baloney. But actually, in making this show, I realised that he has a form of leadership that allows everybody to do that.
I see all these benefits to working on television. I mean, for example, and I know it isn't always like this, but I love the scope of it. I love that you can't, the regular 2-hour rhythm that we're used to following in terms of like a character's emotional life, like maybe 3/4 of the way through, they'll cry and they'll show you what's really in their heart or whatever. And that's amazing, it works, it's worked forever. But in this case, I found it difficult that I know a lot of people have seen episode 1, but they haven't seen the whole thing. And so people will say, oh, we saw episode 1 and we saw this. And I feel like, but you haven't seen it. You haven't seen, in a movie, you have to stay, I mean, I guess if it's terrible, you can leave, but like, you see all my work, you see the whole thing from the whole character I made in one sitting. I'm finding it a little difficult. I keep saying to people, no, it's just the tip of the iceberg, episode 1. There's so much more.
Long-form storytelling has been particularly pioneered, well, on both sides of the English-speaking world. But HBO were brilliant, and they started these long-form complex storytellings, and they started to really land in people's conscience in a way that many movies weren't and still aren't doing. Mm-hmm. So, there are fabulous movies, and we witness them sporadically, regularly. Mm-hmm. And so that's not to say it's a golden age of television, because there are still great movies being made. Yeah. But it is, on the other hand, true that a lot of movies have a kind of video game quality to them. And the movies of the past that we all, perhaps some of us were brought up on in the 70s and 80s, early 80s, are now on television in terms of the fabric of their storytelling.
All of the characters are fantastically well worked out and very detailed. So you go through this story with a very particular understanding of each of the characters.
When you're pregnant, you can sometimes feel a bit marooned by your own size and a bit sort of sloshy-brained and vulnerable and out of the picture. You don't feel like you're a normal person. And I think it's been written with a great generosity towards that. I think Hugo knows what it's like for a woman to go through pregnancy.
And that's one of the wonderful things about Hugo's writing, that he doesn't write carbon, little cut-out cartoon characters. He writes really great characters, so every now and then almost everybody gets to do something that you go, really? And that's a wonderful thing about his writing, because that makes us, we all have those things, don't we?
I think what makes the series compelling to me is the way of telling a huge story in very simple ingredients.
And it's not afraid of engaging in an elevated space. So, big things happen. That's all psychologically grounded and really, I think, truthfully explored. But, big stories, big key moments, set pieces, for which I suppose I had a reputation before, have been developed and maintained. So the issues of suspense and the thriller elements, which I think I see no reason that you can't engage in really quite complex issues around the genre of a thriller. It shouldn't kind of belittle either or elevate the other. It's something that I think you can keep a nice tension between.
Each director got his own vision. Each director comes with his own background story, and it's new. It's like born. It's like getting a life, and you don't know what it's gonna happen, but you just jump and you take the same boat and you travel with this.
I remember asking Hugo what was his motivation for writing this ridiculously extraordinary piece of writing, and he said he wanted to deal with an argument, and there's no bigger argument on the planet right now than Israel and Palestine. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll take that. At the heart of it is this honourable woman who is just desperately trying to do the right thing. When you read it, it's agonising to read, because you think, come on, give these people a break. They're desperately trying to create peace and do the right thing, and do the right thing by everyone. And yes, that involves a certain amount of change, but good change. Let's go with them on that journey.
What's wonderful about this whole series is that it's about an irreconcilable political situation, and it's about people within that are looking for reconciliation. I think that's what makes it immensely poignant, because it's on an understandable level.
I like the space to explore something in a way and in a rhythm that is unpredictable, and I was so kind of proud to see it on screen.